What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown. And before we begin, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who commented on the last one. I'm thrilled that it was so well received. It makes me feel like I'm not talking in a blank void, but I'm right there with you, and makes me more than happy to keep putting in the work and making these all for you. For those who are new to the channel, first off, what took you so long? You found us! The premise of this series is that there's always so much coverage around Kickstarters and crowdfunding campaigns when they're launched, and not so much on the back end when they're headed out the door. So what I'm trying to do here is reading through every campaign that I can find. That's finishing in the next week. Read through the rule books and distill it all into one video so you can see if there's anything that you might be interested in. My only criteria is time frame. That's it. So my goal is here that I might be able to shine a light on indie games that are close to their funding goal but haven't hit it yet, as well as remind you about popular titles that you may have missed and haven't hit the remind me button about. And I gotta say, right off the bat, if this is your first episode, this isn't a great week for crowdfunding. Even though I found more this week than I did last week. Maybe that's it. But at least if one of these comes across your feed, you don't have to waste your time looking into them because I've already done that for you. And I can tell you what to think about it and we can be the same person. None of these I'm really all that interested in, to be honest, but I'm throwing everything I can at you just so you have this resource. And you'll have to let me know if you want me to curate it a little bit more or just blanket the more the merrier's preferred. So with that in mind, let's get into it. First off, and this one is ending tonight, so you don't have much time, and it's for tabletop terrain for RPGs, abandoned buildings, etc. But that's not why I wanted to mention it. I'll usually reserve this space for games, but I wanted to talk about it because of its wonderfully generic name, The Abandoned Village of Generica. And I just thought that was funny, and that's why I'm mentioning it here. The pledge is just STL files for terrain that you have to print yourself. About 49 bucks Canadian. I have no real bead on what's a good value and what's not in this sort of sphere. So if you like printable files and printing your own terrain and stuff like that, let us know if this is a good back or not. It seems a little pricey to me. I feel like you can find similar designs on Thingiverse. I assume. I know people are putting them up there for free quite frequently. But if extra printable terrain is your thing, maybe check it out and let us know if it's any good. They've unlocked quite a few stretch goals. You'll get a bunch. So with our honorable mention out of the way, any Miranda Chase fans in the house? Who's Miranda Chase? I don't know either. But they're making a game about her. Not to be confused with Carmen Miranda, Miranda Chase is the lead character in a series of books, an autistic genius air crash specialist. So probably just another Hollywood savant portrayal of autism. I mean, I haven't read the books. I did read an interview from the author where he said he was inspired by his kid who works in autism therapy, so that's kind of cool. And the campaign does just seem so earnest and lovely in its joy for bringing forward this passion project. It feels like this is the first time this author has heard of board games and is so excited to be working with someone to create this little co-op game. And in the current stretch goals, I think it's kind of cool, you also get the ebook of the first Miranda Chase novel. So if that was on your radar, might as well pick up a game while you're at it. To continue with this tangent, the marketing for this book is also archaically hilarious. Tom Clancy fans open to a strong female lead will clamor for more. Let's move on. The gameplay itself doesn't look that complicated. They do have a rulebook if you want to check it out. It looks like a little optimization puzzle, so I'm not really sure about the replayability, since there are a set number of scenarios and missions, I think. You're going to be controlling different characters, moving through various time zones, and trying to solve mysteries, but there's no deduction. You just compare your character's solve mystery stat to the mystery's number. That's how you do it. But everyone has different movement values, and so you can ferry people closer if they can't move as far. It seems kind of like a lighter Forbidden Island, if that wasn't light enough for you. It's not something that blows me away, and I think it would get a little bit stale, and the art is quite bad. Like I said, if you wanted a book for 20 bucks, you get a book and a game. And speaking of bad art, next we have a game called Immunowars, which basically looks like a game where someone said, hey, let's make a funny take that card game about bacteria. and viruses, because we're coming out of a pandemic and people will buy this because it'll seem like a novel idea. Pretty much what it is. It says it takes an hour, which is about 45 minutes too long for these types of games, for my tastes, but it's no Munchkin with 3 hours of take that. There's also no rulebook, which is a huge red flag for me because it's pretty clear they're not delaying because they want to work on the graphic design. It's just random card draw and then playing random cards on each other with a theme that I think we just all rather forget about for the time being. All the voiceover in the world can't interest me in this game. If you check it out, they have this really epic voiceover artist narrating everything. Our action cards. All in all, I can't believe that this actually funded, but part of that is probably due to their not safe for work STD expansion, which people like those types of things. So if you're interested, 1, let me know why, and 2, you have until tomorrow at 7 a.m. This is one of those that I would have curated off the list, so you'll have to let me know if you're happy to have learned about it, or if I should just skip this sort of thing next time. Next, we have a self-described miniature strategy game that's already been created, and this is for the expansion, Test of Faith, but you can get both. It's for a game called Blood of the Northmen. Not the Norsemen, the Northmen. And I'll edit that in post if I made a mistake on the title. What really stood out to me about this is first the 30 to 60 minute time frame. Strategy miniatures? Quick time? Yes please. It was funded in 5 hours, so you can already tell this is a pretty decent following. It's 74 bucks Canadian for the base game, or 118 for the 2. I mean, in these sorts of things, when you really know nothing, it's probably just better to get the base game to start if you're interested in it. Take that minimal risk, unless you check out the rules and you're like, yes, I need to have this all right now. And it kind of looks like hexagonal Carcassonne, where your meeples can battle each other. Every time you lay a tile down, it will enable your forces to move and attack other people's forces, and you'll get points in that way as well. Everybody gets a special ability tile to start. I like variable player powers. And I think it's neat that in the rules it says that you have to place a tile next to 2 existing tiles, so you don't get swaths of long map, but instead you're going to be building a tighter map where people are going to be fighting all the time. So I think that'll serve it pretty well, probably. Sorry about the lighting if the sun's going. This is how it is. And then your actions are determined by the type of terrain on the tile that you place. So if it's got forest, you get to do the forest action. If it has a lake on it, you also get to do the lake action. And as far as I can tell, the expansion just adds extra units. Little mini modular things that I'm sure you can implement or not. And there's no pledge manager. You're going to pay for the shipping on the Kickstarter, and then they're just going to send it to you. I mean, the rulebook is pretty clear. If this sounds interesting to you, check it out. The base and the expansion rulebook are available, and you have until Wednesday at 2 a.m., which is basically Tuesday night. Don't miss it if that's something that might interest you. Next up, we have Escape the Asylum. Now, this is an escape room experience for 1 to 6 players, but the most important thing to note about this is that you can pay with Dogecoin. That's a thing. So if you think it's on its way out the door in the crypto market, you can really tell with Dogecoin. Get rid of your coin and get yourself a game. This has smashed its funding goal. Last I checked, it was almost 100K. It'll probably be over that now at the time this is being posted. I mean, they say they're offering a $10 discount of MSRP. Otherwise, it's an escape game. It's kind of unique on Kickstarter that you're not going to get the Kickstarter stretch goals or exclusives. They have the puzzles already made. It's not like you can extra section into a puzzle. So basically, you're just pre-ordering, and the shipping will probably balance out that $10 discount, depending where you live. But that being said, it looks like pretty good quality. There are lots of positive reviews. You can't really look that far into it since it's just puzzles, right? But the reviews seem to tout that the mechanics are satisfying and engaging and interesting. And for the 45 bucks, you get 10 missions, so 10 games, basically, which, considering an unlock or an exit game will probably cost you 10 to 20 bucks, pretty good value. And I also kind of really appreciate that there's a big paragraph talking a bit about mental illness and how it was stigmatized back in the day where people got sent to asylums. And they give links if you're suffering and need resources. The deadline to back is Wednesday at 2 p.m. The links will be below. But I think it's great that they addressed that sort of stigmatization, the abuse that these patients are probably going to be experiencing and need to escape from. Next, we have a game called Start Them Up. And this is the type of small game that I like to see. It's a light deck builder, which is a meta game about startups and getting enough users to love your product. Basically, the Kickstarter backing experience. It's hit its funding goal, and it's projected to be delivered this December, which is also kind of cool because Kickstarters don't usually function that quickly. And it's about 37 bucks Canadian. Pick one of 6 characters, they all have a unique power, and try to deal with your emotions while keeping your business mind calm, cool, and collective. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it does seem like a funny little deck builder with some nice art that hopefully doesn't overstay its welcome. My only worry with this would be the variety of cards. It doesn't look like there are many unique cards to add to your deck that give you various powers, etc. But it's more focused on maximizing your power and getting those users to look at your product and not your competitors as quickly as possible. I like the art, and they plant a tree for every 6 backers, so they're at about 200 trees now, which when you factor that the average tree planter plants like 2,000 a day, doesn't seem that great, but hey, it's a nice gesture. Our next up is an expansion to the card drafting, tableau building, Golden Geek nominee of 2018, and that's Villagers Shifting Season. They're also offsetting their carbon, they say. In what way, I'm not too sure. And this expansion just gives you a bunch of modular expansions for the base game that you can incorporate as you'd like. And you can also get the base game on this Kickstarter as well. It's 68 bucks for the 2 of them, or 23 if you're just interested in the expansion. I mean, if you like Villagers, and according to this Kickstarter, quite a few people do, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. Modular expansions to keep the game fresh, add new villagers to collect, new leaders to enhance the replayability, all great stuff. It's also on Tabletopia, which you know I love because that means you can play it for free and then decide if it's worth purchasing. I really enjoy the art style. It's that sort of minimalist style. I haven't played Villagers, but a friend of mine owns it. I saw it on a shelf. I was over there recently, and I sent him a text asking him to describe it for me and what he likes. And he proceeded to describe Village and all its mechanics. So it's also very memorable. He then described it as simple but fun. Finding things and stack them on top of other things and get points for it. My guess is 68 bucks plus shipping is a little high for this sort of experience, but if you already own the game, well hey, you might be interested. This next one is a little sus, but it's already hit its funding goal of £20, so who am I to judge? In fact, it smashed its funding goal of £20. And hey, it's also $3 if you want to purchase this game. Probably the cheapest game I've seen on Kickstarter. That's not true, Clash of Decks was free other than shipping. But you'll get it in an email, and it's called Party Planner. If you like roll and writes, flip and writes, that's what this is. You're gonna get a bunch of maps to print out and play. They've got a bunch of stretch goals he'll create and test, yeah. You'll flip over cards and you'll store those resources in different stores, and then you'll have to go around and collect the resources from the stores in 3 rounds, so it's very quick. It's a very strange looking project. Hey, I mean, we all gotta start somewhere. And who knows, maybe it's awesome, and this will pave the way to creating an actual physical product down the road like Battlefish from last week. Next up, we have 2 games about potatoes. Would you believe it? Me neither. This is my life now. The first one's called Toxic Potato, and you don't want to have the toxic potato in your hand by the end of the round. The art on this one actually does look pretty fun, but if you've seen one cheeky Kickstarter card game, I think you've seen them all. It's 15 to 20 minutes and you're playing random cards with random effects on random people and having lots of laughs according to the commercials. But it's resonated with a bunch of people because it's raised over $25,000 Canadian, so there you go. Check it out if you need another one of these games. I imagine you don't. And the second one looks like it has a little bit more substance to it. It's a cheap $24 game about coding your pirate ship to do what you want. And that's Potato Pirates 3 Battlechips, where you also get to play as a potato because why not? You can also get some cute little plushy keychains, which shall remain the photo for the rest of this segment. No rulebook, which frustrates me to no end, especially since they've had 2 other iterations. But clearly they have a following and they've raised over $100,000, and that alone makes me more inclined to take note. because people seem to be on board. So if you're looking for a lightweight programming game about potatoes, and programming is a mechanic you don't often see in these sort of lighter games, I think, you have until next Sunday to decide. Next, we've got Bloodfields Eternal Sorrow, which is an expansion for the fantasy war skirmish game Bloodfields. This was funded no problem. People want more armies for this system. And I have to say, I've never really been a fan of miniature war skirmish games because I find these get close to LCGs where the cost on your wallet can just increase and increase. But if you're a fan and you haven't heard about this one and you have a printer, check it out. They're selling the STL files for the multiple armies, or you can get copies fully printed in resin and shipped to you. I was watching a King of Average video recently where he mentioned that if you're a painter, you owe it to yourself to paint on resin at least once in your life because it's a delightful experience. I don't know if these minis are the ones in particular that you will want to spend that resin treat for yourself. Do they get your paintbrushes a-tingling? I don't know, they might. For me, I don't see myself being really like that drawn to them. But I do think it's really cool that you get the STL files for a bunch of gaming accessories. Might be worth it to you. That's the part that actually stands out about this. The basics of the game is that both sides will be at opposing swaths of terrain and run towards each other and attack each other like all skirmish war games. You roll for initiative, you get 2 actions, it goes back and forth. It feels pretty standard. I don't think there's additional rules for more players. But the rulebook is also very readable, so you won't be frustrated reading it, especially if this is your thing. I will admit that I didn't end up reading through this whole rulebook because it was my last one and it was late at night and I was very tired, so I skimmed through to see if there's anything mechanically interesting that just kind of popped out. And for me, it seems like a pretty standard fare, but sometimes standard isn't bad, so worth checking out if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, this isn't gonna pull you into the genre. And now up next, we have an IP that is close to my heart. That is Epic Spell Wars Annihilageddon 2. I remember when I was just getting into board games and I played Epic Spell Wars at a gaming cafe and I had a blast. And I bought it for my girlfriend at the time and we thought it was so funny. And it's just kind of dumb fun. In the original, one of the rules is you have to cast spells in a wizard voice, which, like, yeah. You make spells and you try to target everybody else in a free-for-all and be the last wizard standing. Now this is a similar premise to the original, but this is also a deck builder under the Cryptozoic system. Now they made the Attack on Titan deck builder, which, as you know, I think is incredible. And they also made the DC deck builder, which, if you didn't know, I think is very horrible. Unfortunately, the setup looks a little bit closer to the DC deck builder rather than the greatness that is Attack on Titan. But if you're a fan of the IP, they already have the first Annihilageddon out there. So you could pick it up and play it and then decide if you need this version, which looks like just a souped up version of the first version. Spoiler alert, you probably don't need both versions, but the art is so unique and fun, and I think this is a great pick if you're just getting into the hobby. It's dumb, it's childish, and it unabashedly markets itself as such. It also has a very readable rulebook with lots of lore, so you can get a sense if it's right for you. It ends next Wednesday at 3 a.m., so basically, in the words of Annihilageddon, Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday! And finally, we have this abomination, Orlog, the Assassin's Creed dice game. Now, I try not to be snobby about board games. I think it's kind of shitty to be a snob. Just because someone enjoys something that I think is pointless, who cares? If people are having fun with this hobby, however they do it, that's the important thing to me. But there sometimes comes along a game that is so mind-numbingly pointless, so obviously an IP cash grab, that I think, oh, there won't possibly be that many people who are interested in this thing. And it just breaks my heart a little bit that you slap down a horn and some rocks and it raises more money than almost everything we saw last week. And those were some solid games. And I understand how people somehow want to pay $250 for a horn replica from the game. I know people love Assassin's Creed and go crazy for replicas, but for the most part, this feels like a game that will end up on the shelf in countless houses and never really see the light of day. But then again, I'm not the target audience. Pure Arts, who makes this game, makes collectibles. And this is more a collectible than an actual game. I mean, the gameplay, all that aside, if you love rolling dice, it's your favorite thing to do, or if you wish the King of Tokyo was primarily 2-player eliminated the cards and any additional strategy and only focused on the two monsters hitting each other in the head over and over again, and you wanted it to be simpler, and you love Assassin's Creed, then hey, you go for it. And I hope every time you look at it, it brings you the most joy that it could ever possibly bring. And if it ultimately gets people into the hobby, well then hey, who the hell am I to judge, right? So that's Orlog. I think you know where I stand, but I hope all the backers really love it. That was close, I almost threw a little tanty there, so I'm glad we saved it and ended on a positive note, but I gotta get that picture off the screen. So there we go, we made it. 13 down. Thank you for sticking with me. It was touch and go there for a few moments. I'm going to do this every week, a pick of the week, a pick for me, a pick for you. Sometimes I assume these will probably be the same. I guess for me, these are the things that sort of pique my interest if I were to get one. Blood of the Northmen is a little expensive for my taste for what it seems to be, pretty basic. Epic Spell Wars, I've probably outgrown it. And as much as I'd like to play it, I could always get myself a copy of the first Annihilageddon and feel pretty good about it. And chances are get pretty close to the same experience. So my pick for this week would be Escape the Asylum. I like the unlocks, I like escape games. It gives you 10 of them for 45 bucks in those 2 parts. Seems like a decent thing and a pretty decent price. I mean, I'll probably look for it in retail, look for it on the secondhand market once somebody's gone through the experience and packaged it all up and wants to get some of their money back. Now my pick for you would be to go back in time and pick something from last week. Some of these made me want to quit this hobby altogether. So I'll give you a recommendation. None of these, if you want to watch a fun anime about superheroes, watch My Hero Academia, because it's so good. Or if you don't like anime, I'm still going to suggest an anime for you, a psychological thriller, Death Note. It should be on Netflix as well. Exceptional, even for people who don't watch anime. It's a pretty exciting psychological story. So that's what I recommend. Instead of checking out any of these titles, go start a fun show instead. I think it's probably time better spent than with most of the stuff on this list. Or maybe not. Are you backing anything that's on the list? Set me straight in the comments below and let me know. Again, thanks for sticking it out with me and making it this far. I really appreciate it. If anything, you can put your mind at ease. You can take a week off of frantically searching those crowdfunding sites and you won't miss anything. As always, my name's Chip Gorge, and I do have a catchphrase. These dogs are barking, and I'll see you later. I don't know. I gotta get out of here. I'll see you next week. Bye.